Ladies and gentlemen, on that note, let's get started with our day one of the conference at FOAID 2016. And first up, we have with us Mr. Rahul Kadri from the I.M. Kadri Architects, Mumbai, to speak on the topic, Private Initiatives for Public Spaces. So yes, looks like we're all enthusiastic to get started. Let's have a huge round of applause and please help me welcome on stage, Mr. Rahul Kadri.
Hi, nice to be here. In the 60s, Toyota, Honda, etc., came up with a new system of designing and manufacturing known as Kaizen, right? So all of us are aware of it. So what was it? It was a system of continuous improvement. And it was about listening to people on the shop floor and getting design feedback. And by doing that, they actually changed their cycle of releasing new cars. Detroit, the Fords and the GMs took 6 years to come up with a new model, whereas the Hondas and the Toyota started doing it in 2 years. So they completely changed the cycle of release of a design. Why is it that democracy cannot work in the same way? Why do we have to have a 20-year plan? Why is it that we cannot have a system of continuous improvement of a city and instead look at that rather than 20-year plans which don't make any sense? And what is the system we need to put in place where the government actually listens and what the citizens feel need to happen, happens. Today, all of us know that, I've made plans, we've all made plans for the city, but it never sees the light of day. Nobody bothers, nobody wants to see it, there are interest groups, whatever. Basically, it's the function of the government today to ignore, to delay, to set up a committee, to not listen to the committee they've set up, to set up another committee, and basically postpone things forever. I mean, we know from the fiasco of the development plan that the few good things that there were there in the earlier plan are not going to be there anymore because now this plan is being made by a set of bureaucrats who don't care about the look and the feel of the city. I mean, there was one very simple and beautiful thing proposed in the new DC rules about how a building should address the street. We all know today the way a building addresses a street is with a compound wall, right? Now, for a citizen walking on the road, do you want a city that you always address a compound wall? So they had just made a simple rule by saying you will leave 3 meters of open space which will be public, and then you will have some public use on the ground floor. Such a simple thing would have changed the face of the city. Now that rule is not there in the DC rules anymore. So it's things like this that need to continuously percolate up, which will never happen because we don't have a system where citizens' voice is heard or some expert's voice is heard in a meaningful way. So I feel by design of our processes, our cities will never become good. They cannot. The way the BMC works, the way the systems work, the process will never allow it to work. So no matter how much, so today I actually came to show a design we've done for the waterfront, but this design is now 2 years old. I was thinking, why am I showing this once more? We've gone to the CM, we've gone to everybody kind of showing it, and everybody says, ha, 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 very good, must do it. The officer will change, and it doesn't happen. So what is a meaningful system we need to put in place or expect from the government that ideas from citizens or ideas from the community like us is actually taken up and heard in a meaningful way and some process or some money allocated to a feasibility project or something. I mean, Brinda has done things. There's P.K. Das, of course, has managed to actually execute a lot of his work. But even he has done a number of things which don't see the light of day. So basically, in the past, there have been a number of projects in the city which were initiatives by private citizens. The Mahim Causeway, next. There was a city improvement trust which did a number of things like built Princess Street, Muhammad Ali Road. So there was a trust set up by the citizens which had the support of the government that managed to do. So in the past, we actually had a mechanism where the citizens could put forth projects and the government would assist in completing these projects. Next. So the town hall was a private initiative. Next. The Prince of Wales Museum, I was surprised to learn that the Prince of Wales Museum was actually privately done. It was nothing to do with the government. Next. And the list kind of goes on and on. Next. So how do we now work with the government to set up a system where something like this can be revived, where it takes up projects from citizens, whether we need to do it as an association of architects or some other way. I think that's something we need to find, because we know that the way the BMC works, it is only the bureaucrats who can initiate a project. So it's not even our elected representatives who can initiate a project. A corporator cannot suggest anything. A corporator can only say no to something put forth by a bureaucrat, by someone from the IAS. So in a sense, representation by the citizens is actually zero. So we say that we're a democracy, but we actually have no say in the way our city functions and the way our city runs. So we're still following systems which need to be completely changed. So no matter what we say and do, we will not be able to affect the system in the present process. Next. So the other just small point I wanted to make is that I feel a city is fundamentally about how it treats its pedestrians. The entire quality of a city is what is the experience of a pedestrian. And if we bring focus back to the pedestrian and empowering a pedestrian in all ways, I think we solve a number of problems to do with a city. And we completely take the focus away from the automobile and focus on the pedestrian. So empower the pedestrian to get within 500 meters of their workplace, their home, or their place of recreation through public transportation and through metros, and then have people walk. So to begin with, even having our pavements be wide enough so that enough people can actually walk, and smooth enough so that someone who is elderly and old can safely walk. I mean, even that fundamental is not there in any of the cities. None of our pavements of any significant length is even at one level. Just that simple fact of, is it at one level, doesn't exist. And we worked with the Nepean Sea Road Citizens Forum now for the last 4 years, just on one simple thing: can we get Nepean Sea Road safe enough that an 80-year-old woman can walk by herself from one end to the other? Not possible. So just that simple thing is not possible because the pavement doesn't exist in parts, it's broken in many parts, the levels don't match. So just that simple thing of safety isn't there. Baman spoke and Niranjan spoke about open spaces, and that is something we need tremendously, but that's also, I feel, that's mainly we need that for the pedestrian, for people to be able to walk, because that's the cheapest way for people to get out some exercise. In the past, we've had Marine Drive, Worli Sea Face, which are still kind of the most used public spaces there are. So we came up with another plan in front of Nepean 60 Roads next, which is a promenade from Banganga to Mahalakshmi. So it kind of makes sense that you can change the coastline, and it can be a coastline which is actually used by people. Next. We all know the figures of how little space we actually have. Next. And the tradition we have had of reclaiming, so this bogey of reclaiming more land, and we shouldn't do it, really doesn't make any sense. Next. And what we're talking about is a 4.7 kilometer length, and the coastline of Maharashtra itself is 720 kilometers, so really shouldn't matter if you reclaim a little bit along this length. Next. And then we were looking at which coast we can look at, the east coast or the west coast. The east coast is the harbor. It's a deeper bay, far more difficult. But now, of course, with the Mumbai Port Trust land hopefully coming into the public realm, we will also be able to look at the east coast. But we fundamentally look at the west coast because it's a gentler slope, and the usage that's being put to right now is extremely low. Next. So this is the proposed length. Next. And the simple act of putting a promenade here would solve 5 problems. Supply of water, wherein you create the catchments. Most of the rainwater in the area, because of the hills, is going in the sea. So by the promenade, you create catchments, keep the fresh water separate from the sea water. Sewage, there is at the least 20 locations on Nepean Sea Road where the sewage water is going directly in the sea. Treat the sewage water, recycle it. Of course, increase health because you'll be able to walk, recreation space, and security because there will be people on the coast manning it. So just eyes on the street will increase the security on the coast. Next. So just what is possible. Next. We looked at the linkages. How can people come onto the promenade? And there are various streets which are available, at least 10 of them. So there are lanes which open directly to the seafront, from which people will be able to come and use this promenade. Next. And we studied the tidal pattern, and we noticed there's a 38 to 40 meter difference between the high tide and the low tide. We felt this is where the flora and fauna along the coast survive, and they shouldn't be affected. So what's the kind of plan you come up with so that the flora and the fauna on that intertidal space continues to thrive. Next. So this is just what happens and the intertidal things. Next. We studied the topography of the coast. And next. So this is just showing the sewage outlets which are there presently, sewage pouring into the sea directly. It's illegal. We've pointed it out. I have a file this thick now for the last 15 years writing to the sewage department. Something needs to be done about this. But there's just no way to keep anybody accountable here. Next. And the officers change. So what we are saying is that we can have our sewage treatment plants underneath the promenade. So we have a promenade which is 50 meters wide, and 37.5 meters or 40 meters would be as a slope. So the intertidal flora and fauna isn't affected. So you're still letting the sea go up and down. You're not creating a vertical edge so that the flora and fauna does survive. Looking at where we would have the water harvesting points. There are natural bays which are presently there, which could be used to have the harvesting ponds. Next. Just some of the calculations on how much water we can save for the area, etc. Next. So some 42,000 tankers we can save. Next. And then we were saying, how can this, if at all, work with the coastal road, which was being planned at the time, and some of the suggestions we wanted to make to the committee that was doing the coastal road. Next. Next. Just how it could link up the coast. This section of the coastal road is an 86-meter wide strip with a sharp edge, and we felt this could be modified in some ways or integrated with the promenade. Next. So suggesting next that maybe you could put the cars, bury the cars in a tunnel so that the residents have access to the seafront rather than having to cross an expressway to reach the seafront. Next. Or a metro system, which they're talking about now. But the problem with the metro system is that you would have to link it to metro systems inland, because how would people actually come here to use the system? So unless it's a part of a network, it doesn't make any sense. Next. And then just some of the uses we could put it to. Next. And some visually how it could work, what could work where. Next. And then we worked out what would be the kind of costing we would need. So we need about 800 crores to be able to do this. Next. And we were looking at, if you're only doing from Banganga to Priyadarshini Park, it would be 350 crores. Next. And if you're doing it with the tunnel, then it's 1,500 crores. So etc. Just looking at various options of costs with the system. Next. And then just, if we can also have a mechanism where things like this can be crowd-funded. So if you do a calculation, there are about 500,000 people who would benefit from this in the area. And if each one of them gave 700 rupees for a year, that's all the money you need. 350 crores is in the bank. So if we could even look at initiatives where you're not depending on the government for the funding, but more than anything else, I mean, these ideas, I think all of us have, and there are 15 of them for the city already available, but there's no way they're going to see the light of day because there is no mechanism, there is no process where the government will actually listen and set up a system to make things like this happen. So the first thing we need to look at is reclaim democracy in some way and say, we need to have a say. Today, we just don't have a say in anything. So that is, I think, the starting point, that what is the design of a system where we will have a say in what happens in the city, and how can we continuously improve it rather than this farce of a 20-year plan which is meaningless. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kadri. If I may kindly request you to remain on the stage for just a minute, sir. Thank you once again. I'd like to invite on stage Mr. K.K. Sai from Berger Paints to please come forward and present a token of gratitude to Mr. Rahul Kadri. Well, let's have a huge round of applause one more time, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. I believe we have a question.
I don't know whether this is supposed to happen, but...
Yes, sir.
It's really hi. This is Vishwanath from Bangalore. This is not a question, and we had the same issues in Bangalore. The government took note of it, and we have a lovely pedestrian access of 3 to 4 meters in St. Mark's Road. Worked out very well in tenders, and the best part of it is it worked around the schools. And it is such a pleasure to walk around, and the children find it very safe. And I think we did a small step by going forward on this. Almost the same way what you gave the presentation. Right. Yeah. Great. Thought I'll bring it to your notice.
Look at it. Great. Today's papers actually had the Shiv Sena saying that they want to pedestrianize some of the streets in the fort area. So maybe with political backing, it'll actually happen. Thank you.